I'm looking at our own company where we've got a ton of really, really smart people. They're using code assistants that didn't exist 6 months ago, and now they couldn't possibly see themselves not doing it. And it winds up becoming a force multiplier, not because it's right. In fact, it's actually often wrong, but it gets them 80% of the way there. So it's solving the things that they just don't want to do. So I think from an AI perspective, there's so many new tools and techniques and approaches coming online that for you to truly be part of not just the knowledge economy, but the economy, regardless of your job, you really do need to be able to continuously learn, be able to take on new opportunities, be able to solve problems. And why could we now solve drive-through voice AI when others tried, spent hundreds of millions of dollars and couldn't do it? And we were able to do it for under $5 million. And the answer is because there's just been some changes in techniques, changes in compute, all at the same time while we interface to point of sale systems that are 25, 30 years old in some cases. And we can still do that today.
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Seth Siegel as our guest. Seth brings a wealth of experience from his time at Sun Microsystems, Cisco, and a variety of startups. He's now the driving force behind Audivi, an innovative AI company that's revolutionizing the drive-through experience. Seth's journey from a blue-collar kid on Long Island to a successful tech entrepreneur offers valuable insights into solving problems that others think have already been solved. If you're interested in how AI is transforming everyday consumer experience and the challenges of building a startup in this fast-paced AI landscape, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Augmented AI Labs for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to talk to Seth today. Let's get to it. All right, Seth, welcome to the Shift AI podcast. I'm really, really excited about having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. We're really looking forward to speaking today.
Awesome. Well, I want to set this up for, this is a topic that I'm really, really interested in the AI space. And before we kind of get to the business that you're in right now, Audivi, I want to just talk about your background a little bit, give people some context. You worked at Sun Microsystems ages ago, but at a time when things were really exciting at the company. You worked at Cisco, so you had some big company experience. But then you did several startups and you've been on the board, so you have experience and a kind of window into the startup ecosystem. But can you flesh out a little bit of your background for the audience before we get going?
Yeah, I grew up a blue-collar kid on Long Island, put myself through college, and started my career in politics in the mid-1990s. And I've always been focused on whoever is in the middle of the bell curve. So I'm proudly perfectly middle. And so for those of us that are in the middle, we think a lot of times about solving the blatantly obvious. And I work for companies, I work for some great firms. I was a national managing director of Deloitte and a few other places. I always look for business and opportunities to solve things that others think that others have already solved. And what I have found is that if you can do that, you can actually have some great success. You can launch some great companies. You can be part of great things. And also some important lessons I've learned in my career is it's really about the we, not the me. And early in my career where I would, when in the dot-com days where everyone was way promoted above where they should have been at that point in their career, you think it's all about you. And then as you grow and you mature and you learn, you really learn that we allows you to be more successful in bringing others along with you on the journey. And I'm very proud of being able to have done that and learn from others.
Yeah, amazing. You know, we've talked a little bit about some of the folks that you've met along the way that have worked with you in the past and that, you know, are kind of potential customers for you now. So it's kind of exciting to tie up all the loose ends as you think about a career. But let's get into what you're doing now, because I think that it's really, really an interesting problem to be solving. So describe Audivi to everybody and let's focus on the problem space.
Great question. Appreciate it. We do one thing at our company. We make sure you can get your fast food faster. That's it. We do exactly one thing. We are a drive-through voice AI automation company focused on improving and driving the great experience that you expect when you go to a restaurant drive-through. We were inspired. We were inspired because of an argument that I had with my wife at a Taco Bell in Ontario, Canada, 11 years ago, because it was so slow and it was 10:30 at night. We were doing a 15-hour drive home to Virginia. And we went, I got to make this faster. It just took a little longer than we expected. And we're proudly today, we are the first generation 2 drive-through voice automation system. We're the most accurate drive-through system that's being deployed in the market. We're multilinguistic. We're doing amazing things in under 2 seconds, which is really solving the industry problem. We're also globally compliant. We're the first globally compliant drive-through ordering system. And when you can handle languages like Castilian Spanish or Chilean Spanish, Argentinian Spanish, or Mandarin, which we do, and you're compliant, we're not collecting information about the end customer, all of a sudden brands become very interested in what you do. So we are the piece of software that sits between the speaker headset system that you see people wearing at restaurant drive-thrus and their point of sale system. And we interface with the 3 major headset manufacturers, PAR, HME, and Quail Digital. And we also work with the largest point of sales providers. We already integrate into them. And that gives us incredible scale without requiring a massive company. We focus on doing things that are hard. Our corporate slogan is, we focus on doing things that are incredibly hard and they look incredibly easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's such an interesting use case because it's one that when this whole AI revolution started, immediately I thought, well, of course, we're going to be able to take in people's voice transcripts at a drive-through and then, be able to understand those and execute on the order. But there's a lot of hard problems to solve when trying to do that. And there was a lot of mistakes that were made early on by pretty big companies. So can you talk a little bit about first, some of the high profile mistakes that were made early on in the first gen companies, and also why is it such a hard problem?
Very small AI compute cycles to be able to get what we want. So we're able to get margins relatively quickly. We'll be cash flow positive within a year. We expect to exit this year with more ARR velocity booked than we actually are raising in the round. So it's the sort of thing that investors want. So having that clear plan and understanding the characteristics of your investors really matter. We found in the ultra high net worth and family offices, they are able to make decisions very, very quickly. And they are also able to bring the weight of their offices. We love family offices because they've got money to invest. And if we want to go meet with the private equity owner of fill in your favorite franchise chain, they can make that call happen because that PE firm wants that family office's money. Great question. I love talking about technology. Having been in the technology field now for 30 plus years, Gen 1 companies are rarely successful. I always love talking when I give speeches at business schools around GeoCities in the globe. Both of them launched in 97, 99, both had billion-dollar valuations. Both did exactly what Facebook does, and both were bankrupt before Mark Zuckerberg graduated high school. It doesn't mean that they were bad ideas. You just have to do with the market timing, the underlying technology, and how you're able to be successful. And the greatest case studies that exist in our field was the complete failure of a company called Presto, who's now done an Article 9 sale, recapitalized themselves. Valiant failed. There's a bunch of others that failed. And it wasn't because these weren't smart people. They were very, very smart people. But there were market limitations that prevented them from being successful. Number one, prior to 2024, all headsets that were used in restaurants were analog. They were literally just old cable analog system. And so if you needed to grab that signal to be able to figure out what someone was saying, I had to go install hardware. That's a problem. And the one thing I've learned in my last job where I was running a managed services provider that serviced hundreds of restaurants is don't sell products to restaurants that require a plug because invariably someone will unplug it to plug in their phone. And we would do hundreds of services calls a month just on that very topic. So you had analog. Number two, they were trying to do analysis on real streaming audio, which is very, very hard to get right. It's actually impossible to do it in real time. So there's been some real innovations in speech to text and text to speech and approaches. And number three, sort of that pervasive fake it till you make it culture works great, unless you're doing companies like, Theranos. But the big thing is in voice AI and ordering systems is you're selling to a very traditional industry. And if you say you can do something, you have to be able to do it. So any of the Gen 1 companies, when we looked at how accurate they were with having no human involvement in production, 20, 30%. I can think of a very large competitor right now who really is an AI company. They have a BPO. They have a call center sitting in Vietnam and the Philippines that listens to orders when their voice AI system goes down. We are truly the first no human in the loop voice AI system for the restaurant drive-through business. And that has allowed us to be able to greatly surpass all the metrics that the industry wants. So when we meet with brands and they demo out our software and they try our live code and they go, wait a minute, it actually does what they say it's going to do.
You know what's really interesting about some of the demos that I've seen and some of the stuff that we've done where you've demoed your product for me is how in a consumer situation, how unpredictable things can be. It's one thing in a business situation to do a workflow AI solution where you know what the inputs are going to be, you can handle those, and then you test and so on. But in this case, I mean, you could be yelling at your kids, you could be speaking in multiple languages. There's just all sorts of stuff that can go down, and you have to get it right because consumers don't have a huge appetite for hallucination or anything kind of getting wrong. And I think that's one of the big challenges that I see in your industry.
100%. In the world of tech, you have the Turing test. We have what we call the Boston Mom test, which is a Boston mom pulling up in her minivan or her car to a fast food place. Kids are screaming in the back. And she says, these kids are killing me. All I want is a cheeseburger. Now, there's a few more explicatives in our testing system that we use. But the point is, which cheeseburger? And figuring that out in real time in 1.5 seconds is really, really hard. And how do you filter out background noise? One of the ways that we do that is we work with companies that make the headset systems like PAR, HME, and Quail Digital. And we also have some of the most brilliant mathematical minds in the world of AI. I'm formerly the global head of AI for Infosys Consulting. We built that to be the third largest AI consultancy in the world. Our team built what is the second largest system today on Microsoft Azure, doing package tracking for one of the major shipping companies. It handles billions of predictions a day. So our expertise was in doing high throughput AI prediction. When I had gone off to the other company and your team sort of go on the wayside, when decided to launch this company in February of last year, I reached out to the folks that used to work with me, and they had all gone up to other places and say, hey, I think I want to get you your cheeseburger faster. And so that allowed us to get access to, our team is 80% PhD or all but dissertation. And so they are truly world-recognized experts. Some of them actually teach the classes at major Ivy League universities that others use for inspiration. So by being able to do that, we're able to really think through the use case. But not only that, I had weight loss surgery. I used to be 100 pounds heavier. I ate at a Habit Burger yesterday. And so I eat at fast food every week. So being a selfish entrepreneur, we started a company because I just want my food faster. And when you understand the business, I put myself through college working in the quick serve restaurant space. I've been an operator of business of fast food restaurants. I even own the rights to a very famous ice cream chain in the city I live in. And so for us, knowing that business and you can go address it and approach it, you get a level of gravitas and meaningful interaction that you can get elsewhere.
And now, before we dive deeper, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a little bit about one of our podcast partners. As a listener of this show, I know you're trying to stay on top of all things AI and tech, which is why you have to check out the amazing GeekWire podcast, produced by GeekWire and hosted by Todd Bishop. It's a treasure of insights featuring industry leaders and the latest tech trends that are shaping our world. It's the perfect companion podcast to Shift AI. GeekWire podcast is where technology meets curiosity and covers the world of technology, startups, and geek culture. Expand your tech horizons and join the conversation. Tune into the GeekWire podcast today, a perfect complement to our own discussions here. Don't miss out. Follow the GeekWire podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening app. Before we go further with the interview, I want to tell you about one of our podcast sponsors, Augmented AI Labs, and how they're transforming businesses through intelligent AI solutions. Augmented AI Labs specializes in helping organizations unlock their potential with Gen AI, starting with your most valuable asset, your business knowledge. Their comprehensive process begins by identifying critical workflow challenges and knowledge needs, then building custom solutions that make your company's expertise instantly accessible. The Augmented AI Labs team combines fine-tuning and retrieval methods to ensure your AI solutions truly understand your business context. They thoroughly test and validate each solution, ensuring it delivers measurable value before creating a detailed technical blueprint for deployment. The real beauty of partnering with Augmented AI Labs is that they don't just stop at strategy. They build, deploy, and manage these solutions for you, continuously improving your knowledge systems while you focus on what you do best. If you're ready to transform how your organization leverages AI and knowledge, visit augmentedAIlabs.com and click on the Contact Us button. That's augmentedAIlabs.com. Now back to the episode. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. I mean, not only are you trying to figure out this technology and run this business, but you're also trying to navigate the startup world, which includes investors and raising money and all sorts of other things. Will you talk a little, there's a lot of audience members that are founders that are in the early stage of trying to figure out how to take a company to market. Can you just talk about some of that, some of your experiences and kind of what you've learned along the way?
So we were fortunate where I personally bootstrapped the company for the first year. And when I say I mean, I got permission from my wife to bootstrap the company for the first year. And then we started taking on outside capital in January. We were fortunate to get some really good investors, but we got some really good investors after talking to a lot of people. For investors, I would say the biggest thing that I'd recommend is when you meet with VC, your first question. I mean, I still get excited when I talk to VC and they're like, oh, wow, this is going to be the meeting. We're going to walk out and everything's going to be wonderful. The fact of the matter is you need to ask a VC, how much dry powder do they really have left to invest? What was their last investment? How long ago was it? What do they look for? Are they an active investor? Are they a passive investor? What we have found for us is that we take investment from people that can introduce us to people we want to know. I've run billion-dollar businesses. I've run million-dollar businesses. And so we don't need a VC to tell us like how to go, or an investor to tell us this is how you go run a business. We've got that down. We've got a proven track record of doing that with some fairly high degrees of success. So we decided to, rather than just do a shotgun approach, where we became most successful raising money, is to find investors who are at the intersection of had money, and don't underestimate how many people will tell you they have money. And then you get access to pitch book. And for instance, we pitched 75 funds. And then we couldn't figure out why we keep hearing no. 72 of them had no dry powder. The three that
first
did
question to ask
are all like, and then you need to make sure, is this person really being truthful? So you wind up getting a bit jaded on that point, but you want to make sure that the people you're meeting with truly have dry powder. It's respect of your time. It's respect of their time. But for us, what became more important were investors that knew people we wanted to know. So we carefully actually researched them. We did our due diligence, not on the construct of good or bad, but who do they know that I want to know that I don't know otherwise without that person? That is the key to great networking, is you find people that know someone you want to know. And the only reason you're going to meet that person is because of that. So from an investor perspective, we are both ultra high net worth and VC funded. We're finishing around with some family offices. We found those to be very, very efficient ways to fund us, because if you look at the amount of money we're going to raise moving forward, it's relatively small based upon our price points that we have, the margin targets that we've set. We have an expertise in doing.
How about your experience as a seasoned fundraiser? And I say seasoned, meaning that, this is not your first rodeo and you've been, in the working world for a long time. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me, that are a little bit older and have said, I'm having a hard time getting in front of VCs and getting good responses. We know that a lot of younger founders are getting funded. Do you have any experience and do you have any theories on why sometimes it's difficult for folks that have been around a little bit longer?
Yeah, because they're not working hard enough. I've heard no hundreds of times. I mean, it's as I told our team, every morning I wake up like a kid on, I'm not going to say Hanukkah morning in my case, but it's like Christmas morning, and I'm full of puppy dog energy every day. And then I cry myself to sleep every night. And then tomorrow I'm going to wake up with that same level of puppy dog energy, because that's what you have to do. It's not, you have to out hustle everyone. You have to outwork them. I've got friends that I've known for years that introduced me to folks that didn't write checks, and I still thank them very much, and you'll get the introductions, but it is simply a numbers game. I used to love baseball, 1980s and 90s baseball. In my house, the 1986 Mets are still the gods of baseball. Or even the Red Sox, you got Wade Boggs, who was an amazing player, who's still only a 330 hitter, which means that, all right, he's striking out 2/3 of the time. It's a numbers game, and it's a hustle game. One of the things that you also need to do, and I advise startups as well, is people become so fixated on dilution. And I want to hold as much as possible, and I want to make sure that I'm not giving too much up early. If you need those with the money, get to make the rules. So I bootstrapped the first year, so I got to make the rules, which means by the time that we were ready to take on institutional and outside funds, we already had a product, we had a good pipeline, we had a sales channel figured out. We had a delivery channel figured out. We had techniques. So we became a safer bet for a pre-revenue company. But I heard Mark Cuban say once, everyone wants to be a wantrepreneur. They want to be an entrepreneur. They want to be a wantrepreneur, but very few people are entrepreneurs. And I don't know where excuse me, it was on an episode of Shark Tank, which I think I was watching on an airplane. I was like, that one phrase stuck with me. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean that you can do it or other people want to give you money. One of the things that I think you see with younger startup founders is they're willing to follow sort of the Y Combinator or the studio model where they'll give up 10, 15% of their company for a $150,000 check. And their failure rates are also quite high. Bloomberg, it consistently does an amazing analysis of startup founders, and empirically proven companies founded by people over the age of 42 have dramatically higher success rates than those started by people under the age of 29. There's no, every math shows that. There's no argument about it. But you still have the answers to, well, why do experienced founders, which is a nice way of saying those of us with gray hair or those of us with no hair, right? Why do we have a harder time? It's because you have an opinion. I was meeting with a founder, one of our suppliers that we use. And I said, well, I always end the conversation, how can I help you? I say that to everybody. What can I do? How can I help you? I said, well, I'm really looking for developers. I said, oh, okay, well, give me your model. I know a lot of people. I've had a lot of employees. What do you need? He goes, well, I only hire people that are under the age of 24. Under the age of 24, why? I said, well, I'm thinking my company's quite experienced. And he said, well, because if they're 19 and 20, then they do what I tell them to do. And, they'll work 18 hours a day, but it's what I want. When I hire people over the age of 24, that they just don't do what I want. And I was like, oh, so you don't want a good development team. You just want people to do what you say you're going to do, which invariably will lead to a bad product. Now they were showing the CEOs immaturity and lack of experience. And I said, well, how old are you? He goes, I'm 32. I said, sorry, so you wouldn't hire yourself is what you're telling me. You can just see this sort of the circular logic there. But when you're raising funds, I pitch every single day. Even before I did this podcast, I was doing a pitch to someone. Now we're expecting to close our round in the next week and a half. We're fully funded. We've got great investors, but you still pitch every single day. And then that also gets to how you talk about your product. As I explained to folks, the most junior person on your team needs to be your best sales rep. So whomever is the most junior person, if they can't walk into a bar or an elevator and talk about why they're excited working for you, with you, the thing that you do and how it's going to change the world or change the industry that you're in, then you as a leader need to step back and saying, what is it that we're conveying to make sure our team is fully aligned?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I love also just the kind of energy that you need to bring to fundraising. I had a good friend of mine that always said, look, I know that I'm going to get out of 100 meetings, I'm going to get 90 no's. So every no that I get is just one less no towards the S's, and that was his attitude. And I love that. It's like, all right, good. Another no. Now I'm getting closer. So it's awesome.
Which is the other, and to follow on that. So the person that actually introduced you and I was one of our VC investors who's just a wonderful human being. I asked this person, I said, well, why'd you invest in us? He goes, you. And I said, what? He goes, I met you, I spent time with you. He's like, you have boundless energy. You know the space. You're the sort of person people like working with. The clients want to buy stuff from. He goes, why? That's who you invest in. And whenever I'm asked by a VC, I have a very strong opposition to tech moats. So when you meet with investors and they want to hammer on tech moats, that's an investor, I'll tell you upfront, that is not going to invest in you. I was a senior exec, as you talked about, at Sun Microsystems. In 2001, Sun Microsystems, in $2001, second largest computer company in the world, was worth, $175 billion. I left in 2006 to go be a managing director at Deloitte. And when it got acquired a couple of years later for basically $0 cash on books, for every $175 billion tech company, Linux is around the corner saying, hold my beer. So I like to think we've got really smart people in our company, genuine geniuses. Give me a room with another group of geniuses, we can probably pull it off, do the same thing. So tech moats are for when you haven't thought about your go-to-market and how do you stop a market from going to another provider? What's your differentiation? It's a weak used phrase to try to make you think that you need to invent something that no one else has invented. To quote Bill Joy, not all the smartest people in the world work with you. So you're going to have to make sure that your moats come from things like integrations and go-to-market, who you can get access to. And so to your point around how do you get older co-founders that can do that is we have great networks. I meet with the presidents and CEOs and COOs and head of operations of brands because you've built a network throughout a career. If I was just out of school and I'm a YC company, they're never getting those meetings.
Yeah. And when it also goes back to what you said about first gen and second gen companies too, a lot of times you don't need to be the first company to invent something, but you need to go to market in a special way. So definitely appreciate that. I want to move towards another topic and, maybe not specifically related to your business, but related to AI, just because I enjoy kind of riffing on stuff with you. When you think about, for consumers especially, what's coming down the pike with all of this new technology, AI in particular, that's coming, what are some of the things that come to mind? How's society going to change? What do people need to be ready for?
It's funny, I'm actually married to an AI ethicist,
Okay,
and she's
great.
focused on the entertainment industry. And ethics really matter. And it doesn't matter from a superiority perspective. It matters to decide how are you going to behave? What is it that your expectations, societal expectations. Our focus on entertainment is I can take a movie and edit it to be culturally specific, remove things that may be offensive to other cultures. Do I do that? Because under the Milton Friedman world perspective is I can use AI to do that. And all of a sudden I have a much more profitable business. Or do I take another view of altruism where I have to be able to, ethical altruism, where I have to go be able to make sure that people can see my points of view? All of that's enabled by AI. My daughter happens to be graduating from film school, and she's a creative producer versus a director. And for her final project, she created the whole thing in AI because she's been working in the field of AI in entertainment now for 4 years. 4 years predates, when any of us even heard of GPT. And she's a very smart woman. She's going up to law school. And when she presented her final presentation in March of 25, her class was like, "This is amazing. How'd you get the actors?" And then she sees the credits and it's ChatGPT, and she was able to guide it. And if you've ever seen a room full of angry people who just paid $400,000 for a film degree and a single student just produced a professional quality short by herself in the period of about a week, that's a great way to be like, "Hey, I'm going to get out of here and go to a different industry very, very quickly." So I think that people need to understand on AI, all AI is the prediction of something that's more likely than not to occur. And the industrial revolution that we're getting in right now is the plumber's revenge. So white collar workers have thought and made fun of tradespeople for years. "Oh, why would you, you don't want your kid to be this." I encourage my children to absolutely go into the trades. My father was a tradesman. I believe very strongly. The one thing you'll never call a plumber or electrician, unemployed. So the AI revolution is the industrial revolution for white collar jobs. I speak regularly around the transitions I think you're going to see in the services industry and the legal industry. And you're already seeing it in financial services. I have a friend that sold his company very quickly because he figured out how to do an analyst job in 24 hours in under 4 minutes. And so you can argue, yes, now the analyst is more productive, but at the same time, I think the last stat that came out of Silicon Valley is there's an 85% reduction in intro level coding jobs down in Silicon Valley. So what AI is doing is dramatically changing the jobs people do. And the analogy I like to use is the defense industry. From 1989 to 1992, 50% of all aerospace engineers in the US lost their jobs because it was the end of Cold War. It was the peace dividend. You forget, this was a really tumultuous time. And so those people started to pay bills. So what did they do? Well, there's a reason why starting in 1993, beyond some DARPA changes, why the internet exploded. Because you had all these engineers that are like, "Hey, I got bills I got to pay." So as white collar employees, you need to reevaluate. If you're not using AI, I don't care what your job is, if you're not using some type of system in generative AI and augmented AI, in mathematical calculations or code assistance in your job every day, the industry's moved past you and you're just making simply a very good buggy whip. So what that means is you've got a lot of really smart people or hard workers are going to have to figure out how to retrain themselves, not necessarily with corporate support. They're going to have to figure out how to be really, truly digitally native and digital experts on what they're going to have to do. And then that will lead to them also creating net new economic opportunities.
I totally agree. For those listeners out there that want more AI literacy, one thing I'll throw out there, and this just happened, we're recording here on April 9th, and OpenAI just came out with an academy.openai.com that has some really great coursework for, not that much money, and in some cases free. And I think people are going to have to take initiative and go out there and learn how to use these tools. I totally agree. Well, I always like to end the show with the same question. So I'm going to give you the same question. And that is, when you think about the future of AI in your industry and otherwise, how would you describe that future in 2 words? And then you can elaborate. What would those 2 words be?
Whoa, dude. Those would be my 2 words.
I
So to
love that.
elaborate
Okay.
upon that,
Whoa, dude.
so again, I'm looking at our own company where we've got a ton of really, really smart people. And I see how they're using code assistants that didn't exist 6 months ago. And now they couldn't possibly see themselves not doing it. And it winds up becoming a force multiplier, not because it's right. In fact, it's actually often wrong, but it gets them 80% of the way there. So it's solving the things that they just don't want to do. And it reminded back when I was a web developer in 1997, where the first WYSIWYG, what you see, what you get editors came online, when all of a sudden hand coding HTML went away and you can be able to move and drag blocks around a page. And I was working for US West Long Distance as their webmaster, still the coolest job title I ever had. And all of a sudden overnight, you were able to use these tools. And it's like, whoa, dude, like this is really, really cool. So I think from an AI perspective, there's so many new tools and techniques and approaches coming online that for you to truly be part of not just the knowledge economy, but the economy, regardless of your job, you really do need to be able to continuously learn, be able to take on new opportunities, be able to solve problems. I mean, why could we now solve drive-through voice AI when others tried, spent hundreds of millions of dollars and couldn't do it? And we were able to do it for under $5 million. And the answer is because there's just been some changes in techniques, changes in compute, changes in headset systems. All at the same time, we interface to point of sale systems that are 20 years old, 25, 30 years old in some cases. And we can still do that today. And we can do it at 98% accuracy in under 2 seconds. That is done because of advances in coding and advances in computing and advances in small and large language models. So I would just simply say that I'm really excited with where we are right now, but this is a long journey. Transformations take a really long time. And so we're still in year 0 of what will be a very long transformation to major parts of our economy. And I think that you just have to understand, to quote Scott McNeely, the person that made the last buggy whip probably made a heck of a buggy whip. You would drill into us at Sun, and he was right. And so don't be the person that makes a buggy whip. Be the person that's figuring out the way forward.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm excited about the future. I love those 2 words. I think that there is a lot to be excited about. And Seth, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. We want you back on the Shift AI podcast again at some point in the future and kind of get caught up on how things go. And we look forward to that. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
It's very simple. You can just send me an email to Seth@Audivi, and that's AUDIVI.ai.
Awesome. Seth, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great. Thanks so much.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Seth as our guest on today's episode. His insights into solving the drive-through voice AI challenge and navigating the startup ecosystem as a seasoned entrepreneur give us much to think about. From the challenges of fundraising to the importance of understanding your industry deeply, Seth's practical wisdom is invaluable for anyone building in the AI space. If you want to learn more about Audivi's innovative work in drive-through voice AI, you can reach out to Seth directly at seth@audivi.io. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast for more exciting interviews and to the Augmented Edge newsletter for updates on how AI can help you scale your business. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we're grateful to have the show sponsored by Augmented AI Labs. Our theme music was created by Dave Angel.